Heather Heyer was murdered on August 12, 2017. She was a counter-protester at the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, a gathering of neo-Nazis, white nationalists, Klansmen, and other assorted racists. Her murderer, a neo-Nazi fellow traveler and a U.S. Army washout named James Field, drove his car into a crowd of social justice supporters. Neo-Nazis' secret cipher, numbers tattooed on their necks, a pair of eights, a silent shout in fascist solidarity. 88, a code for numbered letters, eighth letter in the alphabet, refer to H's for initials, H for Heil and H for Hitler. But now this cowardly graffiti is hijacked for a worthy cause, for the righteous martyred woman whose death recoded 88, H for Heather, H for Heyer. Say her name with fist up raised. What's her name? Heather Heyer. Fist up raised, Heather Heyer. Purge the hate from 88 and loudly, proudly shout her name. Heather Heyer, 88. Wear that proudly, Nazi scum. Heather Heyer, shout it loudly. Heather Heyer, louder, prouder. Heather Heyer, Heather Heyer, Heather Heyer, Heather Heyer. I was pulling my mail from the art department cubbyhole, and one of my colleagues, also collecting his mail, was obsessing about the Beltway sniper. The terror by then was several months old. Why, he asked, can't they find him and stop him? With all those police, FBI, and state troopers, why can't they find him? I said, because he's black. They had let him pass, unmolested, through numerous checkpoints, 10 times. Why? Because officials presumed a criminal mastermind. And that means a white man. Petty crime, stupid crime, careless crime. Now that's the black man's game, Nathan. The intoxicating ignorance of racism is not only deep, but deadly. John Muhammad was armed, and expert, and invisible, making him not so easily killable. Not so with the unarmed black man. He is essentially game, as in sport. Unarmed black man. It's a backhanded reference. It's a question that answers itself, a statement that is already presumed a condition. That condition is that black men are presumed to be armed, and an unarmed black man is an anomaly, a condition worthy of note. Let us compare a recent headline. A 13-year-old boy with autism was shot by police after his mother called for help managing a mental breakdown. The pathos is automatic, and it should be. But do we question our presumption? Without a damning racial description, no. Let's change the sentence ever so slightly. Black boy having mental breakdown, shot by police after mother's plea for help. Was that a deceitful edit? Perhaps. Try this one. It's real. Police kill unarmed black man with mental disability. Headlines are made to grab our attention, mold our perceptions, and stick in our minds. Remember this when we make our own. This one is nearly a century old. Sticks, Nicks, hick picks. What does that mean? This 1935 headline from Variety, the movie biz newspaper. It means that according to box office receipts, the country folk were not impressed with recent movie portrayals of country folk. They preferred glorious gowns, tuxedos, and champagne. His headless top body in a topless bar was a 1983 headline in the New York Post about a tavern murder. But you'll see the alliteration in both these headlines. The repetition of letters that are repetitions in sound. That makes them more memorable. As writers and artists concerned with social justice, we must dig deeper than headlines. We must check our sources. We must be virtuous in our demands, but still we must consider the power of the memorable phrase. Now, most manifestos, as we recall them from our studies, are long, wordy efforts. One of the most notable, and the shortest, at only 267 words, is the Gettysburg Address. But the Manifesto for Dogma 95, a group of filmmakers whose most notable member is the director Lars von Trier, is an agreement of a small group of artists to reject special effects and elaborate technology in order to return to a skeletal, more genuine filmmaking. Their manifesto has just 10 brief precepts. But we will be working even faster and more briefly than that. Why? Because the speed of our communication has increased and our reading attentiveness has lessened. Around the same time, when I was a child and had a Walkman, a fellow named James Gleick published a book called Faster, critiquing our embrace of technology that actually made our lives less leisurely. The cover of the book looked like this. This sort of text should seem familiar. You use it daily. Your manifesto needn't be as Spartan as the James Gleick cover, but it should be succinct in delivery. Also, it is a fairly standard graphic design practice to have the text do what the text is saying, as seen here in Fox 8. The fox becomes the figure 8, and it also appears hand-drawn, which many of yours will be hand-drawn, digitized, reproduced. In this Vargas Llosa novel, the street sign is more than a street sign. It is an X, a cancellation, or an X that marks a spot, like a treasure map. It is also a saw, one sign cutting through the other. You will also see these hidden messages in the FedEx logo or the Amazon smile. One can clearly see the arrow between the letters E and X to suggest speed. And here we see that the Amazon smirk doesn't extend the width of the logo, but only from the A to the Z, showing that Amazon has everything you need. It is an update of the old Sears tagline, Sears has everything. But handwriting is enticing. It suggests a real person behind the message. We can be fooled, of course. You've probably received junk mail, disguised as a more personal correspondence because it is addressed to you in a font that mimics handwriting. Handwriting is also an increasingly rare in our digital age. Think of the pleasure you derive from a postcard sent to you from far away. A friend you haven't seen in years. Their handwriting is an autograph. It has emotional heft. That is why the work of Edgar Hepworth is so emotionally present, as in his Do Not Dance for Pay. An admonition not to exploit one's cultural heritage for the entertainment of the very people who have decimated it. His use of a crude script makes the plea exceptionally poignant. You can also be less direct and more of a slow reveal, as I've done here. This refers to the murderously radicalized Dylan Roof, who killed 9 Black people in the Methodist Episcopal Church in Charleston, South Carolina. In an angry and frustrated response to the murder of Philando Castillo and Alton Sterling, former soldier Michael Johnson killed 5 police officers in Dallas, Texas, and injured 9 others. Unable to dislodge Johnson from his position, the police sent in a robot to kill the shooter. As suggested in Rain Delay, further racial rage killings should not come as a surprise. This is a reference to my hometown and the murder of Laquan McDonald, a 17-year-old who, while walking away from the police, was shot 16 times, 15 while he was already on the ground, 9 in the back. While I cannot connect this officer with any ultra-right organization, his other excessive force usage, frequently with people of color, was exceptional. The 14 words referenced here are the equivalent of a neo-Nazi secret handshake, much like using 88 as a secret Nazi salute. They are often combined. The 14 words are: we must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children. The 14 words were coined by a white supremacist, David Lane, who died in prison and was, among other things, a conspirator in the murder of Jewish radio host Alan Berg. But just as we have usurped the numbers 88 in the remembrance of Heather Heyer, a more recent development shows gay men taking on the name Proud Boys. We're proud, we're boys, Proud Boys. The dedication of racists cannot be ignored because in 2015, an FBI investigation found that white supremacist infiltration of law enforcement agencies was at epidemic levels. But our struggle is not limited to the demand for racial justice moment that we're experiencing here in the United States, or the Black Lives Matter movement alone. There are struggles worldwide that could benefit from your voices and your manifestos. The repression of Uyghur people in China, the minority Muslim people, include detention, forced labor, sterilization, and insistence that they reject their Turkic cultural history and become more Chinese. These places of internment are called vocational skills and training centers, but function as re-education camps dedicated to erasing expressions of Islamic faith and culture. Portions of the recent Disney film, Mulan, were filmed near these Uyghur concentration camps. There are anti-immigration crusades going on in other parts of the world, very similar to the current US administration's antagonism toward restricting immigration from what the US president has called shithole countries. And gay, lesbian, and transgender rights are still not fully protected. And violence against these friends, colleagues, neighbors, and family members continues. And environmental racism is still widespread across this country and the globe. Discriminatory laws remain pervasive. Women continue to be unrepresented in all levels of political leadership. Yet this moment is particularly crucial for African Americans who have died at the hands of law enforcement recently, and questions if there's to be a long-awaited social or political reckoning. Your placards, your songs, your performances are crucial. Since this workshop is about manifestos directed towards social justice and political change, I suggest these strategies. Because our response must be in the form of actions aimed at healing wounds, not infecting them. I remember as a child an illustration on the back of a Black Panther newspaper. I was 6 or 7 years old. The image was by their Minister of Culture, Emory Douglas, whose artworks are prized today. The caption of the illustration, it exhorted us to use what you have to get what you need. So I end with a question. What do you have? What do we need? Because this boy is dead. And this man has a new job at another police department in another Ohio town, Bel Air, hired by a police chief who also has a checkered disciplinary past. They are sometimes called gypsy cops. According to the New York Times, they are fired from one department only to find work at another where their past records are only cursorily checked. It is unclear how far-reaching such problems may be, but some experts say thousands of law enforcement officers may have drifted from one police department to another police department, even after having been fired, forced to resign, or even convicted of a crime. As the FBI has found that police forces have been infiltrated by white supremacists, can we conclude that this can only be met with this? Could it be that Black lives will never genuinely matter until white lives are made equally precarious? Or is wanton police murder acceptable only when its victims are minorities?